Believe me, it'd be 30 some hours from here.
Right. We shall see.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
And so, yeah, let's move on into our main area where we're going to talk about TESOL, TEFL certificate. So just out of interest, for anyone who's watching, then perhaps you'd like to share in the comments. Just wondering who has done a TEFL or TESOL certificate, if you want to share, or whenabouts you might have done yours. For me personally, I did mine pre-service. I just graduated, waiting for graduation. I did mine back in 2001, and I did a CELTA, which my mum, who was working in a language center, she recommended I did because she knew I wanted to go out to Japan and go teach English. I had no idea what it was. I just thought, okay, it makes sense. Find out and get qualified to do something that you're going to do, as opposed to just go in and not know what you're doing.
Right.
So yeah, that was my beginnings. But actually, when I got to Japan, we did have pre-first class training and on-the-job training. It was very intensive, but I was glad to have had 1 month intensive before doing that, because it is being thrown at the deep end. You can go out to Japan without any qualifications, as long as you have a degree, basically, or without a degree, some countries offer working holiday visas.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely gave me a little bit of a head start. I could hit the ground running.
It just basically gives you the confidence to walk in the classroom the first time, hey?
Yes, you get over that first class syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got a lot of kind of the basics and covers, but you do cover it very fast. There's a lot that goes into that 1 month. Definitely intensive things I've done. So let's take a look at the comments. Anyone else dropping something in? People a chance to type in. No obligation. All right. How about yourself, Steve?
I didn't do a CELTA type thing. I went through the school of hard knocks by the seat of my pants, being thrown in with 20 to 40 students all at once. And I learned the hard way, and I still feel bad about some of the nonsense I put students through back in the early days, but I tried to do it with a smile and a humanistic approach. But God, there were some awful lessons in the early days.
I must admit, I had my fair share of lessons that bombed, whether I had my CELTA or no CELTA. I think, what you say, you do really learn a lot on the job and from experience, and looking at what you've done and improving on it.
But it's that idea of all those mistakes made me what I am today, and so I don't regret what I did. I wish I had known that I wish what's available now were available back then. I know Gareth and I talk about this regularly. If I had been able to hook up with an online community and learn from people who've been doing it 25, 30 years, what a treat that is for young teachers now. And I know some of them who are open and who, talking with Girish in Thailand the last few weeks, it's just a thrill to see his eyes wide open and great questions and just earnestly wanting to get there as quickly as he can. Because he knows, he knows what it looks like, what he wants to do. He knows what that looks like. It's just a matter of, getting the confidence and tips and, getting himself prepared.
So, just let's go back to that first question. Why take a TEFL or a TESOL certificate? So one was to basically give us that confidence to go into the classes at the beginning, if you
Yep.
free service. Two, sometimes you need a teaching qualification. For a lot of Europe, then you definitely need to have a solid teaching qualification.
Yeah. And Europe's probably the most advanced.
Right.
You know, I mean, the new frontier is the Middle East and, well, China, number one by 1 billion miles, and then the Middle East. But Middle East is quite strict as well with qualifications.
That's right. I think they can afford to be as well.
Yeah.
Southeast Asia, South America, I think there's more openings and more leeway, of course. Then, yeah, some people do it just because they want to be more professional and learn stuff about it. Other people just take something online for $20 because they just want to be able to get the job.
Yeah, but it's like anything. It's like any skill. It's like, you know, like cooking or playing pool. You know, take a few lessons and learn how to play, and you get so much more out of it.
Right.
You know, take a cooking lesson or two and actually know what you're doing. It's just 100 times more satisfying. And people have this kind of false, not many people, but some people have this false idea that I can speak English and therefore I just go in and teach them how to speak it. And it's just not the case at all. When you see a seasoned, veteran, well-trained teacher, it's seamless. Watching it is seamless, you know, and that's what the more you grow and develop as a teacher, the more you can even recognize that. You know.
Definitely. Some people as well, they go back and they do a teaching qualification even after they've been teaching a while. And there was an article I was reading last year saying there's an increasing trend for non-native teachers to be taking CELTA, and they already had a number of years of teaching experience. So they're kind of different to their typical pre-service native speakers. And often it was basically seen as a career advancement as well. A few people, like when I took my course, there were 3 experienced teachers, one around 5 years, 7 years, and another 10 plus. And they were just looking to, one, finally get qualification, even though they've been teaching a while in the UK and overseas. But also, 2 of the ladies there, they were kind of more senior, they said, yeah, they realized that they picked up a number of kind of bad habits and they needed to have feedback on their teaching, and they felt that they were at a time where they really wanted to just grow and be pushed to develop something. So that always stuck with me. That was like 8 years ago now.
I just saw earlier, I don't know if Rebecca Arthur is a friend of mine, and I didn't know, I met her and didn't know that she was a photographer until I saw her website and her pictures. And it's a great analogy that, you know, any of us can take a picture, but when you see a real pro, and she's a real, got a great, fantastic eye. And when you see somebody who knows what they're doing take a picture, it's just so obvious, the difference, eh?
Right.
And I think that's what we're talking about in terms of go out there and get this qualification or improve yourself, because everybody's going to notice how much better the whole experience is.
Right, for sure. You can tell that I did not take this picture, but this was taken by a pro.
Well, hold it up. I can't see it clear enough. Oh, wow. Is that your kids?
No, it's not actually, but it's lovely.
But it's a lovely picture, yeah.
So, it's by Kim Anderson.
Yep.
Name underneath there.
Yep.
Right. So then, yeah, the question these days, and you know, is why take one online?
Right. Well, if you'll allow me an hour or two, it goes back just to the idea that online has really come of age. When I did a little bit of a search on this last week, there was a whole rash, or like 20, the top 20 hits were from like 2015, 2016, saying online has arrived. So I went into Google search and I changed the filter just to get the past year of information. And it was back in 2015, 16, it was predicting what it was going to be like now. But now the perspective is that it's just completely accepted.
Mm.
There's data, and there's just more and more universities, and the Financial Times,
Mm-hmm.
very reputable Financial Times in New York, talking about the New York University Stern School of Business offering their MA completely online now. And so people, other quotes saying that 50% of university students now do a portion of their credits online.
Mm-hmm.
50%. And people who argue that basically if online is delivered well, it's actually a richer and a more interactive, because everybody's there to interact. They
Right.
sat down to actually interact. And so it's richer, more interactive. You develop all of these kind of virtual communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when you and I first got online and we're
Right.
kind of bumping into each other all the time,
Uh-huh.
and put 5 people in a room together and they
The
just
new
couldn't
days of Skype
communicate?
and
Yeah, yeah. And they also said the other big thing is that it's so multimedia these days that we actually can remember what we've learned so much better by just the range of from TED Talks to graphics to data and charts and visuals and sound. So there's just a great argument that being online, and the one that I didn't read about, the one that I found that there were always 1 or 2 of us in
mm-hmm.
the teacher's room at my school.
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2 that were really keen, but everybody else was kind of a little holding back. Well, you
Mm-hmm.
get into one of these online groups, like in our advanced courses,
Mm.
and everyone is one of those 1 or 2 that really wants as much as they can get out of the process.
Mm.
There's just such a people like people really, everybody's there. They want the same experience. They want the same depth and the interaction. So I just I don't even know if I'm online or face to face these days. It's become so seamless for me.
Right. Yeah, and I can
What's
imagine.
your experience been in terms of getting used to the online world versus face to face?
Yeah, actually, I think when I first started taking courses online, for example, then teacher development courses, then I was sometimes torn. Oh, should I be listening to the webinar that's going on, or do I want to be in the chat? And sometimes the chat's really interesting and takes a life of its own.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't do both at the same time, but the nice thing about if you do want to get into the chat, you can always go back and watch the recording of the webinar later and so on.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're younger, you go to a lecture or you go to a seminar, but that is it.
Yeah.
You might be furiously taking notes and so on, but you don't have that burden, so to speak, anymore. You can still take notes if you want to, but it's also there for you to go back and so forth.
Yeah.
The richness, definitely, as you say, is the multimedia dimensions, and so people have enriched the learning experience so that it's not necessarily just one person delivering something, but
Right.
often watching things or flipped classrooms and so forth. So
one other side of the whole argument is whether companies recognize these online degrees. And you remember years ago when we did our masters, there was the question of whether it was online was as valuable, but it's really changed according to the data in the past 5 years. It's now saying that like 61% of human resources leaders are saying that credentials are equal or better from online courses, because the people who there's still a question about not everybody finishes courses that they do online, but people who finish the courses are really engaged, really involved, and so that they're being recognized more and more as equal to going to a brick and mortar school, as it were.
right.
And the other point they're saying is that we were into kind of this lifelong learning, right? And with the advancement in technology online these days, everybody and their dog kind of realize it's like climate change. Everybody who is educated at all knows it's a real thing. Well, everybody who's educated knows that we need lifelong learning, right? And that it's just pretty much impossible for me to get away and go take a 2-week course somewhere, you know, face to face. I've got to keep working and do my professional development online, both asynchronous and live in online classes. So that's just the reality. If we have to continually learn for the rest of our lives, it seems like online is just about the only practical option there is these days.
Yeah, so often the big trump cards are affordability, accessibility, and the kind of the asynchronous, so the kind of the 3 A's.
Yeah, yeah.
That flexibility that it gives you, especially if you're, you know, if you're either in full-time education already, or you're working full-time, or have other commitments and so on.
But by all means, I would say, Phil, if you've got a month to go to Greece and take a CELTA, you know, do it. What a great way. Unfortunately, you're going to be in the classroom the whole time and maybe feeling bad that you're not out on the beach as much as you want to be. But you know, so I'm saying do it online, save some money for the traveling costs and everything else. You know, get a better job, save money, and then go to Greece on your own 2 weeks.
Right, and there are different options these days to suit different people as well. Some courses are partly online and then have face-to-face components, and some courses are, you know, in other countries they start early, finish by mid-late afternoon, and so on.
Those blended, hey, they call them blended learning these days.
But for sure, I will dip myself on top of the 120 hours kind of stated. You know, everybody knows that who's been on a CELTA that you're pretty much pulling out 3-4 hours a night on top of that and working on assignments all weekend, and give everything else up for about a month. Except
I can't complain about this, but I want to at least ask you, is that there's the good side of being through something that intense,
right?
But I wonder about the bad side. If I had a choice to do it over 4 months in a little bit more manageable bite-sized chunks, versus doing it in 12, 15 hours a day in a month, what's your comment on that? I think I would take the longer bite-sized chunk version.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. Pre-service, then, you know, it kind of makes sense to do it in the month, but
as pre-service.
Yeah, because if you have, you know, if you're not between jobs, or if you're just a newly graduated student and so on, you have the time, right? You don't necessarily have the money, but and then that helps you to get where you want to go sooner rather than later. But in terms of actual learning and retention and so on, and what you get out of the whole experience, as I shared actually on somebody asking about CELTA, and another couple of people who've done their CELTA also said basically it's like, yeah, if you can do it part-time while you're actually working, then you probably get a lot more from it. And somebody who did it part-time said she was really pleased that she did it part-time, because she was teaching, then she could do stuff from the course and then think about what she was doing, then put it into practice and so on. So she felt she actually retained and got a lot more out of the course that way than if she
of course, everybody knows we have our own 140-hour online TESOL certificate, but I just want to take a moment to brag about the design that we came up with, which is very much that kind of reflective process where you're going to be actually working on stuff, have a chance to go back to your classroom, try it out, come back, talk about it in the teacher's room, or with your mentor, your tutor, in a one-on-one or a group situation. But that's got to be where it's at these days. That reflective practice. That's you know.
Yeah, this is something, you know, we've thought about very much from doing our MAs a decade ago, by learning and, you know, having those discussion and reflection follow-ups to things that we studied, and setting up online Skype study groups and being in study group face-to-face. And basically, you know, as we've worked on this last 2 years, that's what we've seen to be the most beneficial elements of being able to do a course over a longer period of time, but make it a richer learning experience. So you get, basically in the long run, I think you get more return on your investment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got this little list that I found, which is why people love working online.
Oh yeah.
And let me just, it's 7 little points. We have time for this?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. I'm going to read it and I'm going to ask you to riff on it or ask me a question about it if it's not completely transparent.
Okay, just before we kick off on that, just say Naveed has also put in talking about she thinks it's easier to take smaller courses and absorb and practice it as well, echoing what we're talking about and adding to that. And Madeline was talking about being interested in online CELTA and Delta, and that makes good sense, depending upon also which one you choose, depending upon where you are in your experience and so on. You've been teaching a while. Delta is usually a good option for people, especially if you're looking into more management or head of school positions and so forth.
Yeah. The DOS, eh? The Director of Schools.
Add your comments and everything in the chat as well, everyone else. Okay, Steve, you're going to throw some things out there.
I am throwing them not out there. I'm throwing them directly at you. Number 1.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the top 10 list. Number 1, easy, intuitive interface.
Okay.
Go. What do you take from that?
Yeah, any online interface these days, I think actually things have got easier and more.
Much easier, hey?
And with a lot of things of just basically we know as well from our own experience where to click or where to drag, drop, and so on. So I think that's been a big improvement in technology.
It's really come of age, hasn't it? I mean, that's a theme tonight, but we're here in Zoom right now, and I read the story of the CEO of Zoom was one of the original, engineers. He was one of the engineers of that company that I've even forgot the name of that we used with Greg Scholt and Theron Muller when they were doing online courses.
Yeah, right. When we did that, it was 10 years ago.
We were paying huge money for that thing every month just to be able to offer because we believed in it. But he was one of the, sorry?
Was that WebEx or something?
Oh, that's what it was, WebEx, yeah. And
but
so
that was what it was, right? So
yeah, that was the cutting edge at the time. But one of the engineers saw so many, holes in the system and so many deficiencies that when he created Zoom, he planned to fix everything, and it's just so wonderful, right? My son uses Zoom, and he's had up to 35 people on camera at once. It's so great. Number 2.
So I'm just going to add, if anyone else is watching, if it's not obvious, we are in Zoom at the moment, and it streams to Facebook.
With a click of a button, hey?
Yeah, and online teachers generally seem to be shifting from Skype to Zoom, although both are in use. A lot of preference towards Zoom. So check it out if you're interested.
Cool. Okay, so number 2 is synchronization across devices.
Right, yes. Being able to switch from one to the other, pick up where you left off and continue.
What are you looking at now? What are you working on? What devices? Great.
Actually, I'm mostly on my laptop, but it's handy to be able to use other devices for a separate screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
My laptop is plugged into a bigger screen too.
So I'm on my iPad mini and I've got my iPhone, and my son is up in Tokyo with my regular computer. He borrowed it for a week. So yeah, but that's that idea of having Zoom on any device that you want to work from is wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one's a little trickier. Number 3, authentic language immersion. And so I'm going to just say, imagine that you're in Morocco and there just aren't many, native speakers, that you want to interact with. I'm not going into the native versus non-native teacher, but if you're you're basically able to work with the best people that you can find online.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's like when I used to dream of meeting Penny someday, or Scott Thornbury, or, you know, Stephen Crash and John Fanslow, and now they're all available. You know, we've worked with them all. So it's that kind of authentic, it's called authentic language immersion here, but I'm looking at it more of like having the authentic, the best people available that you can immerse yourselves with. Sounds great to me.
Yeah, I think that's the accessibility is completely changed, and I'm always pleasantly surprised by how down to earth a lot of people are. You kind of sometimes you see how people have progressed in their careers and how what platforms they speak on and so forth. But at the end of the day, I think the vast majority of teachers, they keep their humility as
Yep.
just
Paul Nation.
Yeah, and they're very, very approachable. I mean, they may be very, very busy, of course, but
yeah,
generally teachers are there. They like helping each other and so on. So I think
teachers like people
in the profession. Yeah, professionalize them.
Yeah. This fourth one here is again a little bit indirect, but advanced voice recognition software.
Okay.
Okay, so just the idea that now we can, it's so funny, my son uses his thumb to communicate through social media,
right.
And my daughter speaks everything. They are 2 years apart, but
right.
She does not type on her devices. She simply turns on dictation and talks for
right.
searching, for communicating, and that whole voice recognition is so good now,
right,
that you don't have to write essays anymore. You can talk them.
Right. That's come out in spoken form.
Yeah, but for this kind
go
of
back
thing
and edit it afterwards for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Wish I'd been able to do that when I was younger.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an interest, and also people on the move and so on. They like to be able to have hands free and be able to talk to staff, search. Advent of smart houses, smart technology, smart homes. Sorry, not smart houses. So I think that's coming into education more and more. People talking about the increasing presence of AI and robots as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Classroom assistants.
Number 5 is engaging online exercises.
Right. So this goes back to, I think, interaction and what type of exercises we can have and so on. And I think people have got better at designing engaging online.
Absolutely.
That's kind of key as well.
Yeah. I mean, I love when we're doing some of our TESOL certificate. I mean, Scott Thornbury has written probably just a little more than half of all the lessons that we're doing. And to sit and just listen to him, I mean, he's in the room. It's like you and I talking right now. He's talking to you, and then you're doing some kind of activity that's riffing off stuff he's talked about, and then he's coming back afterwards and telling you about it, after the fact, and so it's just so cool, and we couldn't have dreamed of that even a few years ago.
Yeah, so I think the other key thing is that, although whatever platform or whatever online course you might do, there may be a certain number of different types of activities you can do online. Obviously, do with the content and design, and then the really crucial part is what do you do with it afterwards as well. And I think this goes back to our study group days with our masters as well. Was the huge difference is about you after you engage in good interactive materials, but then to be able to talk about it and make it relevant to your context and bounce ideas around with other people. And so having live tutorials or live teacher's room or opportunities, that is where
it's the chewing on it and digesting it you know, that's where the real, the most learning took place for me.
Right.
You know, is arguing about it, explaining it to people, contextualizing it. It was just night and day versus simply reading it.
Yeah, I think actually one of my study group friends put it really well. He said to us one day, he said, you know what? He said, I have these great ideas, but they're only great ideas in my head until I meet you guys and I put it out there and actually see whether you guys think it was going to work or not. And then when I put it into practice and I talk about it and talk about what did work and what didn't work, and then you give me ideas back about why it might not have worked as well as I thought it was going
Who
to.
was that?
I won't mention any names, but
That's great. I love it.
we had yeah, it was just like to keep the privacy of the original group. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
having that, you know, that intimate, supportive group is just fantastic.
Yeah. And which leads into number 6 here, which is vibrant online communities. And you just have to, I think words don't work right now, but if you get into, we had one a couple of courses ago, and I don't want to scare anybody, but I ended up counting how many posts were made in a week, and I got up to 1,200. There were 1,200 messages sent over a week. And that doesn't mean anybody felt any pressure to read them all. I was just silly enough to count them all because it was so unbelievable. And whoever, it was either Penny or Catherine Billsborough, was just like saying to me, what happened to this group?
Right.
They're on fire.
Definitely.
And it wasn't Catherine, it was just somebody, you know, 6 people would riff off of something one person said and add different layers to it. And it just took on a life of its own. And,
yes.
And you can't recreate that kind of stuff. It's just magical.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big benefits of online too, is that, you know, you have time to think about stuff, let ideas percolate, and then come back and comment on it later. You might start a comment and then you can think, oh yeah, I'm not quite finished there. So then you kind of let it sit and then go back and so on. So these conversations, they kind of, the asynchronicity actually adds to the richness of what can be put out there.
Nice. That's a really good point. Yeah, I like that. And finally, number 7 was just the virtual classroom technology. And we addressed it a little bit, but just with, we haven't used it here yet, but we have the breakout rooms, which my son has used a lot. When, like I said earlier, they had 35 people in the room. Well, they would open 7 breakout rooms, and they'd go off for 30 minutes and work in groups of 5, come back, and one person from each group would report. And just phenomenal, you know, ability to maximize learning.
Yes, so more and more the stuff that, you know, you could previously only do face to face, we're able to do online as well, and that's been a huge game changer. So
those are those 7 out of those are 7 I picked up out of a longer list of things why people are loving online these days.
Great. Do you have a link for that to share for anyone else who's interested?
No, I might somewhere, but not right now. I don't.
For sure.
I had about 20 tabs open at once, and then I just scrolled this one down.
Okie dokie. So if there are any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in.
Yep.
I'm just taking a look over to Facebook at the moment and just updating the newest comments, and then we'll take a little bit of time to see what's coming up in July, August.
You have a busy August coming up, don't you, young man?
Do I?
You do.
I do.
With your two new 2Ts.
Right. So yeah, we are starting off the cohort for the TESOL certificate course on the 3rd of August. And there are still places as well if anyone still wants to kind of slip in. There's a couple of inquiries just in the last few days.
Good.
And so see when they want to start. So one
And
of the
that Pioneer discount's still available too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We can only really run it for the Pioneer period. So if you want to take advantage of it, then please go ahead and do so. The going back to flexibility, yeah, we talked about people have different lives, different busyness, different commitments, and so on. So we did try to make sure that people have a choice. For example, the cohort starting up is going to be 20 weeks. So 140-hour course spread over 20 weeks. There are other options.
Yeah, about 5 months, eh?
Yeah. And then we have 4.5 months, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
And then there's another one starting up, which will be 50 weeks. So it's just at a kind of a different pace, but suits people who have busy working lives or family commitments and so forth.
Yeah.
And there is an intensive option as well of 8 weeks for anyone who really is able to commit that amount of time and wants to. For example, you have people perhaps between jobs, or also people who've just maybe finished university or at university got summer off and so on.
Scary. 8 weeks is scary.
8 weeks compared to 4 or 5 on another intensive course is almost a walk in the park.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
So yeah, tomorrow I was just gonna say tomorrow we have teachers room. I'll be in the teachers room from it's 1 a.m. UTC or GMT. But that is for me in Malaysia. That will be at 9 o'clock in the morning. So
is it 9 or 10?
It's 9 o'clock here.
Okay.
It's 10 o'clock for you in Japan.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we will be picking up on the same topic this month of looking at learning from our learners and building upon previous teachers' room, and also thinking about how do we learn from our learners and what do we learn from our learners. So if you're interested, then please do join me in the teacher's room tomorrow. And that's the same theme as Andy and Chuki as well. We're talking about in their live interview.
Right. Cool. I had an idea one time I pitched to a friend of mine called Anecdotes from the Classroom. And you and I have talked about it, but it was the idea of what have I learned from my students. So I pitched this idea to a friend and I said, okay, let's start a Google Doc. And I sat down and I wrote 25 of these immediately without even thinking.
Right.
Just 25 students came to mind, and something I learned to them about language, about life, about learning communities, about high school angst, about, just so many things that just poured out of me. Because I knew that had been something I had been collecting over the years. So it sounds like it could be a very rich topic.
Yeah. Are you going to be able to pop in tomorrow?
I might actually. Yeah, I'll see if I can.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And anyone else?
And I'll only make you sit through 15 of them, okay?
And yeah, one difference, of course, with the teachers room compared to doing Facebook Live. Facebook Live, you can see obviously it's us on camera and so on, but teachers room, you have the option. You can be on camera, you can be off camera, you can be texting, you can be talking. So it's just that much more interactive.
Yeah.
Those choices for you as well.
Yeah. So this is a little selfish on our parts. We get to get together once a month and bounce off of each other, and that's a lot of fun for us. And anybody who's still here, we thank you for your stamina.
Well, if you just dropped in 3 seconds ago, brilliant. Okay. Anything else coming up in August? Because I can't think of anything major at the moment. There's a couple of conference proposal deadlines. I know it's actually like TESOL, but you have till September if you're interested.
And that's Cambodia, right?
Yes, that is.
Yeah. And that conference has been growing every single year over the past number of years.
Yeah, and I keep listening to people who say that they're going or they've been, and I ask them about it, and everyone's always like saying how good it is.
Everybody's raving about that conference. Yeah, so shout out for Cambodia TESOL.
And next month, actually, here in Malaysia, we have the MELTA, Malaysian English Language Teaching Association, annual international conference as well, in the middle of August. So the MELTA have their Facebook page where you can find out more information, see all the plenary speakers, and also the conference page just by going to, I think it's melta.org.
For any of our friends who are in Japan, we have something called the Elt Calendar that Bill Palau puts together, and that has literally every week, every weekend, a number of events around the country in Japan. And I'm just announcing that as part of announcing that we have our international conference in November this year up in Nagoya, which we mentioned earlier that Catherine Oki and I are acting as co-chairs this year. And the theme is about teacher efficacy and learner agency. And we're very, very excited about that. So if anybody's in Japan listening to this now and doesn't really know what JOLT is, as was the case with me for the first 10 years I was here, I just didn't know about it. So if somebody's picking this up for the first time, drop us a line or look it up or go to the go to the website. Excuse me, go to the JOLT website or just Google search.
Speaking of Japan, I see Trina has just joined us. Hi, good to see you. Been a long time.
Yeah.
Also just shared the link to the MELTA conference as well in the chat. So
good.
Just go ahead and click. Just going back a little bit to Madeline, who's asking about online CELTA and Delta. You can usually do a search for online CELTA Delta and find out more from there, and also get into the British Council and the British Council teachers community. You'll find helpful things there.
Or come study with us on the iTDi TESOL certificate, because we would love to work with you. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's as hard sell as we get, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. We have 2 minutes. So anything else you want to touch on? Or Trina, is there anything you'd like to ask us about since you just joined in?
Trina's got a nice little, see Andy Boone put a picture of a whole bunch of readers that they have 10 ways to do many things.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on? I'm going to mute my other screen.
Yeah, and Katrina's one of the writers on that series, isn't she?
Yes, there's Andy and Trina.
Leslie Ito and
feel free
Trina.
to put the link in as well.
Yeah.
Any of you who have access to one.
That's what's it called? Halico is the publisher, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so good for them, hey, because they've just taken some good ideas and they're all about getting stuff done, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been coming out at a phenomenal rate.
Yeah.
And we've got business readers, 10 ways to, for example, manage money, be successful in love, be healthy, work in teams, and then I'm not sure how many they've got out in total, but 1 to 10 and 10 to 20. So maybe there's about 30 plus out.
Yeah.
Halico, if anyone who's interested in getting readers, like non-fiction readers, right? For their learners and students with slightly different content, then I would.
Isn't that just wonderful that we spend our last 2 minutes of our roundup promoting Halico's readers? I think that, just a shout out to things that are good. Certainly, we mentioned Marcos earlier. Everybody should go out tomorrow and buy the widgets, the new edition of the widgets textbook. Okay? I mean, I'm just so into, hailing stuff that's good.
Yeah, good stuff that teachers will appreciate.
Yeah,
So,
that's what it's all about. Why
right,
don't we wrap up there,
we will.
Mr. Phil?
Sounds good. Thank you very much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next month, if not before then. All right. Good night.
Good night.